barn groaned in the heat, boards swollen with dust and sweat. Flies buzzed lazily around the manure pile, but inside was hell. Beneath a crooked floorboard, a boy curled into a ball, small, dirt-smeared, shaking. His knees were scraped raw, his lips trembled. He didn't make a sound. Outside, Missy hung limp against the post, her hands tied tight, face split open from Jed's ring. Blood trickled down her chin, soaking the faded blue of her dress. She didn't cry anymore. She just watched that barn like a mother watches a coffin. Jed Cartwright stomped through the dirt, reeking of rot gut and rage. He was a tall man once, but liquor had hollowed him out. Hat tilted low, shirt stained yellow, boots crunching over splinters. "Eli," he roared, voice slurred and wild. "You little rat, come out here and face your father." He wasn't his father, never had been. Eli knew that now, deep down, but saying it aloud would only make the beatings worse. Jed kicked over a milk crate, then grabbed a lantern from the post. "You want to hide like a coward? Fine." He lit the wick. The flame hissed. Missy's eyes widened. She started to scream, but the gag caught her voice. Her boots thrashed in the dust. Jed didn't look back. "I'll burn you out, boy." He tossed the lantern through the open barn doors. It shattered. Flames leapt like hungry wolves, catching dry hay in a blink. Smoke poured upward. The horses screamed from the corral. Somewhere inside, wood cracked. Eli covered his ears, curled tighter. He whispered to the cloth bundle clutched to his chest, "Don't let him see my shame." The words were broken, fragile, like they came from some other world. Jed stood back, grinning like a demon, watching the flames consume what was left of the boy's hiding place. Then, a thunder of hooves. A dark shape on horseback burst through the smoke, a rifle strapped across his back, eyes like flint. Reed Lawson didn't speak. He leapt down, kicked the barn door in, vanished into fire. A moment later he emerged, carrying Eli wrapped in his duster, lungs wheezing, eyes shut. He ran to Missy, cut her free with a flick of his blade. She collapsed into his arms. Jed backed away. Reed stared him down, said nothing. Then he turned and rode into the smoke. Smoke clawed at Eli's throat as the world turned black and orange. He didn't cry, didn't scream. He just clung tighter to the cloth bundle pressed to his chest, whispering the same words over and over. "Don't let him see my shame." The heat pressed against his skin like a branding iron. Floorboards cracked under him. His ears rang. Every breath tasted like ash. Outside, Missy's voice finally broke free of the gag. Her scream tore through the night like a knife. "Eli, no, please." Reed Lawson didn't hesitate. He rode through flame like the devil himself was on his heels. His coat caught sparks. His horse reared and bucked, eyes wild with terror. But Reed kicked through the smoke. Inside the barn, he dropped to the floor, crawled low. The boy was almost hidden, almost gone. Then he saw the glint. Small fingers wrapped around a soot-covered bundle. Reed grabbed him. The boy didn't move. "Hold on, son. You're not going yet." He wrapped him tight in his oilskin duster, shoved his way back out as a burning beam crashed behind him. The flames reached for them, but Reed moved faster. Outside, Missy had nearly passed out, her face gray from smoke and blood loss. Reed threw Eli over the saddle, hoisted Missy up with his free arm, then swung up behind them. Jed stood in the distance, bottle in hand, laughing. "Let the brat burn. He's nothing. A filthy little—" Reed turned his head, cold as death. "One more word, and I'll shut that mouth for good." Jed shut up. Reed didn't look back again. They rode hard, leaving the fire and the mound. And behind, the stars above seemed dimmer somehow. The air stung with smoke and memories. Missy sobbed quietly into Reed's coat, fingers tangled in Eli's hair. The boy stirred once, muttering, "He can't see it. Can't see." Reed didn't ask, didn't press, just rode harder. The ranch sat quiet under a pale half-moon, nestled in the crook of a canyon like a secret too tired to run. Wind whispered through the cottonwoods. Crickets sang low, respectful. Reed rode slow up the hill, one hand steady on the reins, the other keeping Eli close to his chest. Missy slumped behind him, barely conscious, blood crusted to her cheek, dress torn at the hem. He dismounted without a word, kicked the door open with his boot. The cabin smelled of cedar smoke and old coffee. Lantern light flickered to life as Reed struck a match. He laid the boy on a cot near the fire, his small chest rising shallow and fast. Missy collapsed into the rocking chair, arms limp at her sides. Reed poured water from a tin jug, soaked a cloth, and gently wiped the soot from Eli's face. The boy flinched, then clutched tighter to the soot-stained bundle in his arms. "Don't," Eli whispered hoarsely. "Don't open it." Reed paused, looked down at the bundle wrapped in old linen, held like it was part of the boy's soul. "I wasn't gonna," he said softly. "A man's got a right to his pain." Missy stirred, voice cracked but sharp. "He kept it hidden even from me, ever since Mama died." Reed nodded once. He didn't ask what was inside. He stoked the fire instead, letting the warmth stretch into the room. The kind that didn't burn, just reminded you that not everything was cold. He set stew to simmer, slow and thick, laid out a blanket. Missy leaned back in the chair, tears finally falling as her body began to thaw from the horror. Eli curled into himself, whispering again, "Don't let him see." Reed pulled the quilt over him gently. "Ain't nobody here but the fire, son, and it don't judge." The flames danced low, soft, painting the log walls with gold. Outside, the world stayed cruel, but in that small cabin, for the first time in a long time, something like mercy took root. The night stretched like a black canvas over the ranch, stars pricked faintly through drifting clouds. Missy stirred on the cot, listening to the wind whisper through the cottonwoods. Her eyes were wide, haunted. "He'll come," she muttered, voice barely audible. "Jed, he won't stop." Eli hugged the cloth bundle tighter, rocking slightly. "He can't see it," he whispered. "He can't see." Reed sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, eyes scanning the darkened hills. Silence pressed against him, thick as smoke. Then a distant sound, boots on gravel, muttering. Reed tensed, hand tightening on the rifle. He rode into town at dawn, the horizon bleeding pink and gold. The saloon doors swung open with a creak. Inside, laughter and whiskey mingled in a heavy haze. He overheard Jed bragging to a group of drifters, slurring words about losing 2 mutts in a fire. Reed's jaw tightened. The sheriff, fat and distracted, shook his head when Reed demanded action. "Without a girl testifying, I can't touch him," Amos said, voice lazy. "He's just a man, and we're all afraid of him." Reed didn't argue. Not here. Not yet. By nightfall, he was back at the ranch. Lanterns hung crooked from the porch, casting long shadows across the dust. The wind had changed, cold now, biting through his coat. He spotted footprints in the mud near the barn, fresh, wide, purposeful. Eli's hands shook as he clutched the bundle. "They were here," he whispered. He was here." Reed followed the trail to the edge of the forest. The cloth bundle had been tossed roughly into the creek, soaked, trembling. Reed picked it up, still wrapped, still private. He didn't open it. From the tree line, a dark silhouette watched. Jed's shadow stretched long, with gleaming in the moonlight. He smiled, slow, cruel. "Thought you could hide, did you?" Reed's hand hovered over the rifle. He didn't flinch. "This ends when I say it does." Jed's smile faltered. For now he retreated into the night. The morning air smelled of dust and pine, sharp and clean. Reed's boots crunched against the hard-packed trail as he rode into town again, saddle creaking beneath him. He had no patience left for whispers or half-measures. Jed Cartwright wasn't a rumor. He was a threat, and he was still out there. Sheriff Amos Greaves leaned back in his chair, belly spilling over his belt, pipe smoke curling toward the ceiling. "What's all this about?" he drawled, eyes flicking to Reed like he hoped for a fight he wouldn't get. That man lit a barn on fire with children inside. Reed slammed his fist on the desk. Dust jumped from the boards. Do your job. Amos coughed, puffing smoke. Now, Reed, calm yourself. Records say she's just a runaway. And the boy, nobody cares about him. Records don't save lives, Reed spat. They won't keep him from killing again. You let this slide, and I'll make sure someone does what you won't. At the edge of the office, a young preacher, Brother Caleb, shifted his weight nervously. He'd heard stories of Jed, seen him beat a man for no reason, burn barns for sport. Quietly he spoke, voice low but firm. God watches, Sheriff, even if men choose to look away. Amos muttered something under his breath, dismissive, but Reed didn't care. He tipped his hat and left, the sun rising hot behind him, dust swirling at his heels. Back at the ranch, Missy sat on the porch, bruises fading slowly, hair matted with sweat and soot. She looked up as Reed returned, exhaustion lining his face. Did he say anything? She asked. Reed shook his head. He won't lift a finger. That's why we don't wait. He dismounted, brushing dust from his coat. His eyes scanned the horizon, always scanning. We make our stand here, on our land, on our terms. Eli clutched the cloth bundle tighter, his small face pale in the lantern glow. He watched Reed like a shadow, like hope itself had found a man willing to carry it. Narrator. In the West, the law often rode slow, weighed down by fear and comfort, but sometimes justice wasn't found in offices or papers. It was carved in grit, in sweat, and in the hands of those who refused to wait for mercy. The ranch stood silent as the wind shifted. For the first time, the children knew one thing for certain. Someone was fighting for them, and that alone could be the difference between being hunted and being free. Night fell like a black curtain over the ranch, thick and suffocating. Lanterns flickered against the log walls, casting trembling shadows that danced like ghosts. Missy slept fitfully on the cot, every muscle tense, bruises still stinging but exhaustion pinning her down. Eli lay curled by the hearth, clutching the cloth bundle as though it contained all the world's fragile hope. Reed sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, eyes sweeping the hills. The wind whispered through the cottonwoods, carrying the faint scrape of boots in the distance. He didn't flinch. He never did. Then came the torchlight. 3 figures moving like predators, Jed at the front, swaggering, bottle in hand, teeth gleaming in the lantern glow. Time to finish what I started, he snarled, voice slicing the still night. Reed didn't speak. He didn't need to. Every creak of the porch, every shuffle of his boots, every breath told Jed he was ready. The gang smashed through the corral, fire licking at the fence posts. Chickens squawked, scattering into the dark. Missy screamed, yanked from her bed, dragged toward the fence. Eli bolted, but the drifters grabbed him, throwing him into a muddy trough. The cloth bundle slipped from his hands, landing in the dirt, soaked and trembling. Jed's eyes found it immediately. He stooped, ripping the bundle open, and froze. For a heart boo. Eat. Time itself seemed to hesitate. Reed stood, silhouette sharp against the lantern light. Back off, he said, calm and final. Jed laughed, bitter and broken, but the sound faltered as Reed lifted the rifle, finger ready. The wind carried the distant hooves of reinforcements. Sheriff Amos and a pair of deputies called ahead by Reed's foresight. Jed swore, tried to flee, but stumbled over the trough, mud coating his boots. Missy kicked him squarely in the jaw, and he toppled, stunned and gasping. Eli scrambled for the bundle, wrapping it close again. His small chest heaved, but relief shone in his eyes. The deputies grabbed Jed, dragging him toward the waiting jail wagon. His gang followed, muttering curses into the wind, disappearing as quickly as they had come. The first gray light of dawn seeped through the cottonwoods, painting the ranch in pale gold and silver. Smoke still curled from the scorched fence posts, the acrid smell lingering in the air. Silence settled like a shroud, broken only by the distant clatter of the jail wagon wheels on the dirt road. Eli sat on the porch, still clutching the cloth bundle, trembling. His small fingers rubbed at the soot-stained fabric as if the act itself could scrub away the terror. Missy leaned against Reed, her face bruised but softening in the morning glow. She didn't speak, Words felt too heavy, too fragile for the weight of last night. Jed lay sprawled in the mud, his gang gone, the sheriff and deputies holding him by the arms. His teeth glinted in the rising sun, a grimace of rage and disbelief. Reed watched silently, letting the law handle the monster now. He didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Eli finally dared to peek inside the bundle. His breath caught. There, a small wooden horse, scorched at one corner, accompanied by a letter in his mother's careful handwriting. Tears brimmed in his eyes as he read the words he had hidden from the world. Jed wasn't his father. He was the man who had shattered their family. The man who had burned, beaten, and had broken them. Jed's scream cut across the yard, but it was empty now. The weight of the truth, of exposure, of the law catching him, crushed his power. He kicked, spat, cursed, but the deputies held firm. Reed stepped closer, voice low but firm. "It's over. You can't touch them anymore." Jed's eyes flared, disbelief mingling with fury. "You think this changes anything?" he snarled. "It changes everything," Reed replied. "For them, for the world they get to build from here. Your time is gone." Missy brushed tears from her cheeks, finally speaking. "We're free," she whispered. Sometimes the monsters fall not with fire, but with truth. Justice doesn't always come fast, and mercy doesn't always follow. But when the shadows break, the light reveals what was always there: courage, hope, and the chance to rebuild. Reed bent down, placing a steady hand on Eli's shoulder. The boy looked up, fear fading, replaced by a fragile, trembling relief. Around them, the ranch breathed again. The fire had burned, but the heart of the family had survived. The children were safe. The law had arrived. And for the first time, the world seemed capable of healing, even in the West. The sun rose slowly over the canyon, spilling gold across the ranch. Smoke still curled from the scorched fence, a quiet reminder of the night's terror. But inside, the cabin smelled of coffee, fresh bread, and hope. The world outside could wait. Inside, healing began. Eli sat on the porch, the small wooden horse from the bundle clutched in his hands. His fingers traced the charred edges, smoothing them like he could erase the past. Missy moved quietly, helping to repair the broken fence and gathering firewood, each motion careful, deliberate, a reclaiming of what was almost lost. Reed moved among them, steady and silent. His eyes watched the horizon, scanning for threats, but his heart was here, with the children, in this fragile dawn. He showed Eli how to mend the fence, how to measure, saw, and hammer. Each swing of the hammer felt like a stitch in the fabric of their lives, sewing them back together. Missy, fool,